Hello, my astro curious baddies and daddies. And if you don't identify as a baddie or a daddy, then please give me suggestions about what that third thing should be. I love the idea that everyone feels included in this community on this page. So leave me tons of comments as a third suggestion for the astro curious other for baddies and daddies. Welcome to the Capricorn full moon. This is June 29th, 2026, which is tomorrow. Not gonna lie, um, it was my birthday Friday and I worked a lot and then I zonked out early on my birthday. I would not have had it any differently. Had a great time, but, this probably should have been out yesterday, and it just wasn't. So you're getting it today, and this full moon is happening at 7:53 PM, and that is Eastern Time. Tomorrow, let's take a look at this chart. We're gonna go through everything you kinda need to know. Oh, I see we are cutting off. Hopefully, that's the last slide. We see a little cutoff. Everything you need to know, and of course, all through the rising signs at the end, I will give you my professional metaphysical, because I do both, suggestions for the moon water, what I would make that moon water for. I'm always going to tell you whether I would make moon water. Listen, anybody can always do whatever they want. If you like it, I love it for you. And there are practitioners that use full moon water on the regular. I have used full moon water on the regular. Actually, this is not a full moon that I would tell you not to make full moon water. The thing about is what are you using it for? Because the astrological influences are in there. And if you're listening to this because for some crazy reason you just like me, or you like the astrology part, but you maybe are a well seasoned practitioner and I feel like, girl, don't tell me what to do with my moon water, then you should skip that last part. I love sit and listen, and she says don't do it, boo boo. And I'm gonna like, you absolutely should do whatever. The seasoned practitioners make full moon water, eclipse water. There's purpose for everything. This is my suggestions for crystals, intentions, and moon water based on the idea that I'm assuming that people are not seasoned practitioners. So everybody should do as they like. And if you follow somebody else that tells you to do something different, and that's the person you feel most aligned with, when you listen to their advice, it feels calm and settled inside your body, then that's what you should do also. Because while this is a Capricorn full moon, I am happily not in charge of everybody. And you know, I I was away with family and one of them was Capricorn moon and everybody was making suggestions about a family photo or this or that. And I was like, "Oh, well, sure. We could." And they're like, "Well, do you want to do it outside because we're going to do it this way?" And I stopped everybody and said, "I don't care. I have to be in charge of enough. I do not have that desire to be in control of things that don't register for me in an impactful way or my children. Those are my monkeys. Those are my circus. It is a circus that I love, but I I have been at my big age in charge of a lot of things and important things, and I have been the only person at times in charge of things. That probably should have been for more than one person to take care of. So I have no attachment anymore as a Cancer, with a 10th house sun, may I add, to necessarily being in control, being in charge. And that Capricorn energy that wants to be in charge, that knows that there's a right way to do things, that wants to honor the systems that are put in and the things that make sense are not doing that. to be control freaks. Um, One, if you know a Capricorn, they probably had to grow up a little quicker. They probably were parenting other kids or themselves at an earlier age than when most kids should still be worried about being a kid. And so that Capricorn energy can carry through a bit to the general astrology, where we're looking at what are we responsible for? What do we think we have to be responsible for that we don't any longer? Um, this is a very interesting Capricorn full moon. Full moons, of course, that is that 180-degree opposition from the sun. We are looking for the balance in between the two signs, the sweet spot. When you get that seesaw working just right, you get that perfect friend on the other side of the seesaw, and everybody's got a little bit of responsibility. And when that happens and everything is in sync, that is a good old time. But if you're arguing with somebody on the other side of your seesaw and they decide to keep you stuck in the air, it's miserable, right? So this is about balance. This is about not trying to take it all on. And we have a T square with Saturn in Aries. So again, interesting. All astrology, of course, to me is interesting. So that might be redundant to say, but we're going to find the best of this energy. We can always meet the energy, but we have free will. And then I'm going to go through the rising signs so you know where it's happening in your house. A little reminder, this is at 8 degrees and 15 minutes. If you are after 8 degrees and 15 minutes of your rising sign, you might want to check the next sign over. And you may, on this particular full moon and this particular video, because we will be talking about that Saturn, because it's not just in a T square aspecting in this full moon, it is the ruler of the moon. That Saturn is the ruler of the moon. So we have the ruler of the moon in the T square. So I'm going to talk about where Saturn is and what house that is in each of these videos. And for some of you that are going to have a rising sign between 8 degrees and 14 degrees, I may be talking about the moon in one house for one rising sign, and then the sign after may have where your Saturn is hanging out. So for those who have rising signs at 8 degrees and 16 minutes to 14 degrees and 9 minutes, we're probably going to check both rising signs, the one that is actually your rising sign and the one after for your Saturn. And if your rising sign is above 8 degrees and 16 minutes, you're going to be listening to the next sign anyway. If you need further clarification on that, drop me a comment. I'm happy to explain. If a lot of people feel like that's confusing when I talk about it, let me know. I'll make a little mini video and I will throw it up on the quips or somewhere on Patreon and everywhere else on YouTube. If you are listening to this on YouTube, come hang out to Patreon. Do it. For a million reasons it's better and you're not trying to be sold something every 3 seconds by random companies or the platform itself. And you have better privacy and a million things, and it's more organized. They send you emails when things are happening. It is what it is. And that's where all of the membership has been moved over to. And if you are in my YouTube membership and you did not get an email from me, go check your spam folder because yeah, you did. And I missed the whole we're missing a couple people from our community. So let's talk about the degrees and the rulerships for just one more minute before we go off to the next page. So we have this 8 degrees, and let's make sure I'm Here we go. We have this 8 degrees of this Capricorn moon, which of course is matched by the sun in its opposite degree. Now, I'm not giving an aspect to Venus here. It's too much of an orb for my taste. We could go backwards. We could say it's talking to Pluto and Uranus and Neptune. And technically it is, but in separation. So that's why you won't hear me talk about those as much. When we are talking about applying energy, perfected or exacting energy, or separating energy, if something is applying the way this moon is to Saturn, that is that feeling that you have driving on your way to an interview or driving on your way to a first date or a meet up with somebody that you maybe have a little nerves or you don't know how it's going to go. That energy is kind of built up and frenetic, and we feel it in our bodies. Kind of the second we get to that moment, well, now we know who we're dealing with, we know the situation we're dealing with, and the not knowing creates, right, anxiety is putting all of your energy in what hasn't happened yet and the fear of how it will turn out. And so this is kind of the more anxious built up energy when we have something applying. So 8 degrees hasn't met. It's kind of, that moon is going to hit that 14 degrees later in the evening, and then it'll be perfected. But at the time of the full moon, this is applying energy, right? And this is where sometimes we will see things happen right before something clicks into that space where we call it full, or we call it conjunct, or we call it square, or whatever the case may be. When we have the separating energy, and really even where we're separating from, it's all in conjunct. We either have this semi-sextile here, or there's a separating square to Neptune, but Neptune is it's a slower planet. I'm not going to give it as big of a wide berth as I am to like a personal planet. And it's in separation. You're driving away from the date. You're driving away from the interview. All the mystery is gone. It is far less likely that that is going to impact. Can it? Yes, but it's going to be very subtle. And these are also what we would call quincunx or inconjunct. And so I'm really not including that into this full moon. I will say from here on out, the Aquarius, the Pisces, the Aries, the Taurus, the Gemini, and the Cancer full moons are all one way or another talking to both Pluto and Uranus. So this is kind of our last, like, it's not so tight that we can't not talk about it. So we'll wait until those full moons, and then we'll talk more about Uranus and Pluto having conversations with the full moons. That T square to Saturn is that wants us to really be responsible to ourselves instead of everyone else. We'll get more into that. Okay. Get rid of my little pen marks. This full moon falls along the Cancer Capricorn axis, the pull between what holds you home, family, emotional safety, and what's required of you, structure, responsibility, the world's expectations, your reputation, what you feel like you're known for. Full moons bring things to a head. And this one asks where you've outgrown an old sense of security. What makes this lunation sharp is that cardinal T square. The Cancer sun opposes the Capricorn moon. That's what makes a full moon. And both square Saturn in Aries. the moon's own ruler, with no other aspects really pulling focus. Everything funnels into that one Saturn point. The release here isn't so much soft as is structural, and it's asking you to take responsibility for something specific, and in my humble opinion, asking you to let go where you don't have to have responsibility, where you've assigned your own value, and we will talk about that in a minute as well. That Cancer Capricorn balance, this full moon likes the access of care versus responsibility. Cancer is home, family, emotional safety, the need to be held, and but also the need to be nurtured. And but yes, we want that back, but we kind of hide. We say, I'm just happy to give, and I'm just happy to nurture. And you truly are in that Cancerian energy where, and everyone has Cancer in their chart. Somewhere in your chart, the sign of Cancer exists. And in those subject matters is where you might nurture and feel protective. Capricorn is structure, authority, duty, the need to hold yourself. And one asks, who takes care of you? The other asks, what are you accountable for? But they both ask the balance between the two. Do you have reciprocity in how you care for others? And where you have gotten into routine, yet there is no reciprocity, will most likely be highlighted in this full moon. You're being shown where you've leaned too far into one and starved the other, all duty and no softness, all comfort and no spine. The full moon doesn't ask you to choose, it asks you to rebalance the two. So neither one runs your life unchecked. The moon in Capricorn feels things just as deeply as the Cancer. If you know, you know. Uh, Capricorn is also a humanitarian. They are just like a Cancer really laser focuses somebody that they love. You know, you've got that person on your side. They are ride or die. So is Capricorn. Capricorn is humanitarian, one person at a time. They want to help you. They want to fix what's not working for you. Um, they sometimes can feel like you want to say, I don't need that micromanaged anymore. But you have to understand the first time that they were given a sense of value by the people in charge of them is when they were given a responsibility maybe a little too early. And so the sense of responsibility is built into the wiring of Capricorn and Capricorn placements. And as we grow, we can outgrow things, and that again is going to come into focus. It will be on deck. You will see, and I love a Capricorn moon. And Capricorn moons also need other people, and yet it's hard for them sometimes. So this moon is going to show you where maybe you have said, I got it all by myself. If I had to pick a little video that said Capricorn moon, there is this old, it's probably a Vine, it's so old, but there was an old clip of this little girl in her car seat, like for toddlers or babies. She was so young. And her dad's going, Rose, you want me to help you with that? And she's like, no, I got it. Worry about yourself. I got this. I've got not even letting herself be a baby. I got it. I got it. Instead of taking the help. We never want to see allowing others to support us or our vulnerability to be seen as a weakness. Because they promise whatever you feel vulnerable in, there's something else that you are strong as fuck. You are reliable as fuck. And there are people that when they are not up to whatever that moment requires, you are their go to person. You are their rock. And what you excel in well because you would have it no other way. So it's okay to not have strengths all across the board. That vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's just allowing more space for what you excel in, but other people could not imagine not having your support there. So you're allowed to take support for other things. This is the placement of emotional self sufficiency, handling it yourself. I'll do it myself. Holding the line, not wanting to need anyone under a full moon, what you've been managing privately can and may finally surface. The invitation to let structure soften enough to actually feel. And you feel all the time, but being seen feeling and not seeing it as a weakness. A Capricorn moon often learned early that feelings were a luxury or a liability. This lunation asks whether it's still true and what would it take to let yourself be held instead of only holding. Oof, that one hits. Ruler of this full moon is Saturn in Aries. Because the moon is in Capricorn, the full moon answers to Saturn. And Saturn sits in Aries, forming the apex of the cardinal grand square or a T square. That makes Saturn the single release point. Every bit of tension in this lunation kind of funnels here because we have two squares. We have challenges. And I want to say this louder and louder every time. If you have squares in your chart, if there's something squaring something of yours in a full moon, or everybody that's got a Libra placement around 8 to 15 degrees that thinks, oh God, this is a grand cross in my, in my chart, those squares aren't giving you a challenge. Astrology is reflective. Those squares are illuminating a challenge that already exists. And you know what else is in a square? The creativity to find the solution. Saturn in Aries is structure built through self assertion. It's doing the hard thing yourself, taking the initiative of your own steam. The thing about Saturn and Aries, it takes that Aries energy that's such a burst. It's passionate. It runs into that building on fire and it says, slow down. Let's put a system with all that passion and make something that lasts a long time, but not just because it should, not just because someone told you to. It is that I am passionate about this. I want to advocate for this. I feel really emotional and I am excited to do this thing. And Saturn says, great, let's put some systems so it doesn't fizzle out like 4th of July fireworks. Becoming the authority instead of waiting for one. Oof. This work, the full moon asks, isn't dramatic, it's disciplined. Start the thing, hold the boundary, take the next step. That's where the pressure resolves. Also, getting support. All full moons beg release. What is no longer working? You planted a seed 6 months ago, right? You started planning the party 6 months ago. Now you see what needs to change. What gets the best out of those seeds? Do they need more water, more sun, less sun? What you choose not to attend just won't flourish. That's how it works. Where you put your attention, where your attention goes, energy flows. And also the other way around. The way to not find this overwhelming is to make a list of priorities in what you tend to. Did you take on too much 6 months ago? You know, I had a conversation with a friend who I just adore. And I said, I have ADHD. I'm a Cancer in the 10th house of Capricorn. I want to do everything for everybody. I want to say yes to everything. And along my big age, I have found boundaries. And I really like to be a person that under promises and over delivers. And the other part of me wants to give everything to everybody and help everyone, right? And I also want to be with that Aries moon. I also want to be accepted. I don't want to be disposable. So I'm looking for how I can create value that makes me indispensable and not disposable. That's just the truth of it. I like a little transparency. I'm doing well in Saturn and Aries because I live for some transparency. I was having a conversation with this amazing, talented friend, and I said, don't cut down the things that you're going to do or going to offer because you can always add, right? It's like cooking. If you take on too much stuff, if you put too much salt or too much, it's really hard to get that back out of the mixture. You can always add more, right? Can you do it all? Great. Good for you. Hats off. I used to want to prove that I could do it all. And with Saturn in Aries, there's going to be a little bit of like, and Capricorn and Cancer. They're all stubborn as fuck. They're cardinal. They're protective, and at some point you realize that you don't have to prove. Who are you proving that to? Most of the time, you're proving that to yourself. Because long time ago, somebody told you you couldn't do something, or you didn't do it well, or you would never do it well, or whatever it is. You don't finish anything. Start stuff, you don't finish it. It's very possible, if you're relating to anything that I said, maybe you did take on too much. Not because you're not intelligent and not because you wanted to do that to yourself, but maybe there's a little left over that hasn't gotten deconstructed because you've done all the big. If you're listening to my voice, you probably already did a lot of deconstruction. You've probably parsed things out and done the big work. And now it's the nuanced stuff. And let me tell you something. Talk about Capricorn representing the devil card. The devil is in the details. It'll be in that moment you didn't expect because you thought you kind of took care of that. And there's this little nuanced thing that says, "Oh, I was still listening to that voice." I said, "Why didn't you do all of that? You had plenty of time to do all of that. How come that's not finished?" And that probably came from early in life. Look at where this Capricorn moon is and the subjects that go with that house. If you're not sure about the house subjects, I have a whole learning series. And the first series out is the houses, and you will learn the subjects. But that is probably where that vibe exists in your chart. You changed and healed even on a micro level since 6 months ago. What you what you can let go, what can you let go? Thank it for its purpose. It served back then, and give your energy to what serves a new sense of security. I talk about Marie Kondo all the time. Thank it for the joy. Literally had this conversation in a client session this morning. Thank it for the joy it gave you and let it go. Because what we hold, like that Four of Pentacles in attachment, we try to take with us to the next step that we don't need anymore. We don't need to physically hold anything. We can thank it for the lessons, for the joy, for whatever we're thanking it for, and release it because you know what? What's meant for you won't miss you. And it might come back, and it might come back more improved and more aligned with that, even on a micro level, healed version of you than you were, forget about 6 months ago, last week, especially with all of this astrology. Okay, we're going to go through the rising signs. Let me remind you one more time. If you are above 8 degrees and 16 minutes, you probably want to listen to yours and the one after. This moon culminates in your 10th house, Aries. Career, public role, authority, how the world sees you, pulling against your fourth house in the Cancer home, family, your private foundation, real estate, something you've been building for your visible life reaches a point of fullness, reckoning. It asks, what has it been costing your roots? So, a lot of times it's like, I can't stop because everybody's watching. I said I would do that thing. In that 10th house, I have called the 10th house like a glass atrium, climbing a jagged mountain in a glass atrium with an audience. You don't get a lot of privacy there. And until we get to the inner peace of truly letting go other people's opinions of us, Aries rising, this is huge. This full moon could bring you more inner peace than you've ever experienced before if you're not already there, of truly deconstructing other people's opinions of you. Yes, it's reputation, but the reputation you know that your intents created does not have to be perfect, and it does not have to please everyone. And people who want to distract from what they're doing and not doing will talk about you. They'll talk about you a lot. You know what they say? Big minds talk about ideas, small minds talk about other people. Let it go. Because if it's disturbing your peace, that's showing up in your home in one way or another. Because when we dysregulate on the inside, when our peace is disturbed, because those two things are the very same, we take it with us wherever we go, and that includes home. The moon perfects at 8 degrees and 15. If you have a natal planet, a point near 8 degrees of a cardinal sign, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, this lunation is going to land right on it. Also, if you have 15 degrees in Taurus or Virgo, you're also going to get a trine to this full moon, which can be, all of these aspects are beautiful. It can just feel a little bit more personal, but it's going to happen to everybody regardless because it's happening somewhere in your chart. Worth checking your chart for that degree, of course. Saturn and Aries, this sits in your first house. And Saturn both rules this moon and forms that apex of that T square. For you, the release point is you, your agency. It's not about it's not about what happens next. It's what you decide happens next. This is agency. Agency over your body, agency over um what's expected out of you, how you let other people view you, and the self that you decide. Be responsible to you. That's not selfish. The structure has had to change the level of how you show up, not just out there and not just in career. Taurus rising, this is happening in your ninth house. Full moon culminates in your ninth house. Believe me, the higher learning, the wider world, where you're headed. This is also publishing, if you're putting out a podcast, if you're putting out a video, if you're putting out a blog, if you're publishing a book, if you're promoting yourself, if you are adding a skill set to your repertoire, right? That all then moves into, it goes from the ninth to the 10th to add to your reputation. This is the building, this is the expanding, this is the growing. Conviction or direction reaches fullness. And you find out whether the worldview you've been living in still holds up against not just the facts on the ground, but the way that you have grown. With Saturn in play here, any indoctrination that you experienced around any ninth house subjects will probably come to light, and hopefully you will let them go along with this full moon. The moon perfects at 8:15, and of course, we're checking our chart for that, Taurus. If you have natal placements near 8 degrees of a cardinal sign, or if you have 8 degrees of Taurus or Virgo, this full moon's going to feel like it has a deeper, more personal effect. Saturn and Aries sits in that 12th house, ruling that moon, forming the apex of the T square. For you, release happens privately, in retreat, in the unconscious. You could even be in dream state and have release. You ever have that dream where you wake up and you are crying like something really happened? That's release. However, the catharsis come, let it in. And Taurus rising, you love some stability. You vibe with Taurus, with Capricorn, and you vibe with Saturn. The release is going to help you feel like, instead of having to have disturbed movement, especially after having Uranus run over your ascendant, and whatever other placements you may have in Taurus the last 7 years, um, it could feel like that's enough change right now. So take the time to let things go, let the nuanced things go, and do it privately. Avoidance never helps us when it comes to astrology. It just doesn't. There we go. Gemini rising, eighth house activation. This full moon culminates in your eighth house, shared resources, intimacy, debt, what's merged or entangled with another, or deep or hidden. You know what else this is? Money you don't work as hard for. Money that's not coming from your toil, your sweat. Other people's money. Eighth house is not all bad. It's also intimacy. Pulling against your second house, Cancer Sun, your own resources and shared resources. Something about what you share financially or emotionally, how you need to feel safe and loved, and who you feel safe enough with, and who you're willing to share that with, all may come up. And that could end up being an all night conversation with somebody that makes you feel seen, and that could be an all night conversation with somebody that you don't want to ask in a million new different ways to be seen. The moon perfects at that 8 degrees and 15 minutes of Capricorn if you have natal or planet or point near 8 degrees of a cardinal sign, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn. The destination lands right on it. Also, if you have that 8 degrees and 15 minutes in Taurus or Virgo, then you're getting that unrestricted flow, the trine. uh, I'm hearing the song from Encanto, Let It Go, Let It Go. I know that's Frozen, but I like the way Bruno does it better. Worth checking your chart for that exact degree. Saturn in Aries is going to sit in your 11th, ruling this moon and forming that T square. For you, the release roots through community, people, and where you can put the effort, Gemini. You don't mind the change. You're full of ideas. But where can you land that? Where can you have cathartic discussion with friends, with networking? Where can you put that into your long-term plans? And again, online community counts just as much, especially right now with the transits we have. The structure is being asked of you is to get clear and disciplined about who you're building with and where that's going. I'm also going to say that because that Saturn and Aries sits in your 11th house, I just put a quip up in Patreon that says, learn the difference between who is gold and who is gold plated. And I said Saturn and Neptune and Aries are going to help out with that. They are here for that job. And Gemini rising, you anybody, whether they mean to or not, that's not here for the right reasons, or anybody who uses you to do the labor that they don't want to do. Because while you were parenting early on, they may have been infantilized. They may still have like, someone does that for me, even as an adult, and they could be a responsible person and not selfish, but they could still have that kind of dichotomy with people where they grow these relationships where you just kind of almost parent a friend and they like it. So you might see where somebody is kind of depending on you to do things they should be doing for themselves. Okay. Cancer rising, seventh house activation. This full moon culminates in the seventh house. Partnership, committed other. Who you sit across from? Who is your other? This is also legal matters. This is partnerships, whether they are romantic or a business or anything. These are also, this can be like your ride or die, people that you feel commitment towards. This is a house of commitment and contracts. It's not really a partnership. It's really not a house of romance. People see it that way because that is how we do commitment. Now we get to be in love with the person that we want to commit to. That was not the case when these subject matters were formed and divvied up among the houses. A relationship may reach a point of fullness of or reckoning, and it asks who you are inside, not just what it is. The moon perfects at 8 degrees and 15 minutes of Capricorn. If you have a natal place, a natal planet, or point near 8 degrees of a cardinal sign, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, this lunation lands right on it. And these themes get specific and personal rather than general. Worth checking your chart for that exact degree. Also, if you've got 8 degrees, 15 minutes, Taurus or Virgo, you're having that unrestricted flow, that I love you more vibe between this full moon and those placements. Saturn in Aries sits in the 10th, ruling this moon, forming the apex of the T square. For you, release lands in your visible life. Um, this is you taking the reins in your career, authority, public role, the structure you're being that's being asked of you is that's your responsibility out in the world. And I, as a Cancer rising, I don't think you're ever shirking responsibility. I think the thing is like uh the idea of what me, people want to know that what I know, that people want to follow my lead, that kind of thing, you are built for it. Go, I mean, lean into it. The structure that's being asked about you, and how the relationship and the work will, how you find balance in that so that they're not pulling on each other. They are on the comfortable seesaw, not the uncomfortable seesaw. Leo rising, sixth house activation. This full moon culminates your sixth house, work, health, daily routines. This is pets. This is also support. It is personal refinement. This is where we fine tune ourselves. Um, and I think this house gets too little credit for how much it does. Um, People think blah, blah, daily routine and pets. No, it's so much more than that. Um, if you've never had a synastry reading from me, one, if you're with somebody and you like that, I'm not going to tell you, oh, nope, this astrology is bad, run now. But that's not how that works. Um, what I'm going to do is show you where there's support, show you where if the communication wouldn't meet naturally, everything else is going well, how that other person receives better, how the information comes to them. I can see their childhood and tell you, hey, if you say something this way, they're going to appreciate it. That's not manipulation. That is giving you guys the keys to communication to each other in the best way possible, seeing your Venuses, seeing how that goes. There are some signs that if the Mars are squaring, congratulations, because there are certain signs where you almost need that for the physical chemistry not to burn out. So when we're looking at synastry, that sixth house is so important. It's one of the first houses. It will never be like, oh, I have a sixth house sun or I have this. I like sixth house is not given as much credit out there in pop astrology. Of course, real astrologers do, but I just want you all to know that sixth house isn't wah wah. um, the 12th house Cancer Sun, it might feel like every day is nap day. Um, and so adjusting, because your daily life may feel overwhelmed. You could feel overscheduled or overwhelmed, and the body is literally, your energy levels are literally saying, retreat, retreat. Um, because Cancer loves a sanctuary, and the 12th house is like, not only is it a sanctuary, but good luck finding me through these cotton candy walls. Retreat, retreat is maybe how you're feeling, and how to find the balance for that, because you'll just be mad at yourself later, which sucks. You should be able to rest without the guilt later. Um, the body or the schedule will show you what's no longer sustainable. And hopefully it's your schedule before it's your body. The moon, of course, perfects at 8 degrees, 15 minutes Capricorn if you have natal placements or points near 8 degrees of a cardinal sign, answer Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, or by either of the earth signs or other earth signs, Taurus and Virgo. This lunation is going to land on it and really create these like strong aspects that are going to show up for you, letting you release. Worth checking your chart for that exact degree. Saturn in Aries sits in your ninth, ruling this moon and forming the T square. For you, release routes through belief and meaning. What you're aiming at, what are you trying to accomplish, right? Where is that Saturn showing up for you, so that you can anchor in? You might be teaching now instead of learning. You could be producing something new. You could be promoting yourself, and you're going to do it with authenticity. And Leo risings, I hate that you all get a bad rap because of a few bad apples. I decided to redo my Leo video. That's why it hasn't hit yet, because I really want to concentrate on the fact that there's a sense of responsibility in Leo as the sun to keep going no matter what they feel like or what they want to do, because what happens when the sun stops, right? And it is actually very akin to that sense of responsibility that Capricorn feels. And so in this Leo full moon, I really, really want my Leo risings to look at what no longer is your monkey and what no longer is your circus. Um, that's going to be wrapped up in the intention at the end of the video, but I really want you guys to know that like other people will step into the place that you're already doing the labor, if you decide that you don't have to, even the sun goes to sleep at night, Leos. Um, what you're aiming at, what you're studying, the bigger picture, the structure being asked of you is to bring your daily life into line with a sustainable belief system of what your position is. Virgo risings. Fifth house activation. This full moon culminates in your fifth house: creativity, romance, play, self expression, children, and risk. What are you risking to have fun? What are you risking for romance? What are you risking for a little brown chicken, brown cow? What are you risking? What is your gamble? How do you like to have fun? How do you like to be creative? And it's so interesting because a Virgo rising also has to deconstruct other people's opinions of themselves, the value in what they produce. All of that has to be looked at and deconstructed. I will die on the hill. And as a Virgo rising myself, I have said for years to my community that the peace in Virgo is to not pursue perfection, but to have peace about what you produce. And so, in a Capricorn moon that also is about production and reputation and value in how they're taking care of everybody, this might feel like a very marked moment for you if you lean into the release part, Virgo risings, in that fifth house of what you have to risk and what you don't have to risk. And that the creativity shouldn't, and romance shouldn't, and play and self expression should not feel risky against your reputation, against the sense of what can I produce for others and how perfect is it. So to me, when there's a Capricorn transit and it's happening in the fifth house for Virgo, it's a little different than when it happens for other rising signs because those things shouldn't feel like risk. And take a moment and think about if they do. If they feel like, well, I can't do that, I don't have time because I'm still working on this, it's not perfect, it's not ready. The collective, the future, something you've been making or loving reaches fullness. And you feel the tension between what you create for your joy and what you do for the group. That moon perfects at 8 degrees and 15 minutes in Capricorn. If you have any natal placement or point near 8 degrees of a cardinal sign, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, or in Taurus or Virgo, this lunation lands right on it, either in a square or a trine, and uses these themes to get specific and personal rather than general. So again, this could be poignant for you. Definitely worth checking out in the chart for those exact degrees. Saturn in Aries sits in your eighth. This ruling the moon and forming the T square for you release lands in shared and intimate spaces. This is the giver. This is such a Virgo rising thing. This is the giver. And so in intimate spaces, what what part of you are you allowing to be given to? What part are you allowed to be vulnerable? What parts of you, even in the bedroom and in the actual the physical intimacy? I mean, you know what they say about Virgos. And if you don't, leave it in a comment and I'll tell you. Um, and as a Virgo rising, yeah, I mean, we want to make sure everybody else is happy. And what would you be risking to make sure you were happy? It's about the trust, the debt, what's merged, and what you don't say out loud, what you don't ask for. The structure is being asked about how exposed you're willing to let yourself be. Yeah, because if you give control to somebody else, they might mess it up. And if you're a Virgo rising, you've probably been burned more than one time. Uh, you know, astrology is reflective and people don't get that way for no reason. Libra rising, fourth house activation. This full moon culminates in your fourth house, home, family, roots, your private foundation, pulling you and your 10th house into balance. Cancer sun is in that career house, reputation, the public roles, something at the base of your life reaches a fullness and you feel the pull or the balance between what holds you privately and what's demanded of you out in the open. This moon perfects at 8 degrees and 15 minutes in Capricorn. If you have natal planets near that degree in Cardinal, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, or Taurus and Virgo, this lunation is either landing in opposition, square, conjunct, or a trine. And themes get kind of specific when you have personal planets in those degrees. So that's worth checking out in your chart. Saturn in Aries sits in the seventh house. sitting on my moon, ruling this moon and forming the apex of that T square. If for you, the release is the routines that we find that we're the way that we commit to others, really. Um, at some point, is this not being authentic to you? At some point, were you advocating so much for somebody else that you're not honoring the structure of what you need? And where you can fine tune for the partner that you're with and you love, right? This is not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Having that conversation, you know, uh, quite honestly, with a full moon in this structure, don't have that conversation out in public. Have it in an intimate space and do it without blaming anyone, saying, hey, listen, you're doing your best, but I'm feeling like I'm at deficit with this, that, and the other thing. Like, can we find a way? And you tell me what you're feeling deficit at and where you feel like, although I'm doing my best, you're, the little boy with your finger in the wall, like the Dutch boy. Uh, if you don't know, like with his finger in the dam so it doesn't break open and ruin the whole town. Um, ask them where they're feeling that from you. If you go into it with like, hey, you're not doing enough, that's not going to go well, especially not with all this cardinal energy. Scorpio rising, third house activation. This full moon culminates in your third house, the mind, the communication, the immediate and daily, what's right in front of you, pulling against your ninth, balancing that ninth. Cancer sun, big belief, big picture, the long view, other cultures expand. However, we're expanding, producing uh, conversation. The plain daily truth comes to a head. Um, the moon perfects at 8 degrees and 15 minutes of Capricorn. If you have natal placements uh, near this degree in a cardinal sign, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, or an earth sign, Taurus, and Virgo, this lunation is going to create big impact. So it's a beautiful thing because it's going to give you release. It's going to let you release where you don't have to be giving labor to. It's going to let you work smart and not hard. And a Scorpio loves that, right? Because other stuff is hard enough. Worth checking your chart for those degrees. Saturn in Aries sits in your sixth house, ruling this moon and forming the apex of the grand square. For you, the release lands in the body and the routine. Structure is being asked of you if it's unglamorous daily practice, the work, the health, the order you keep. Um, this is also not overscheduling yourself and being everything to everyone till your mental health drains. To be honest, this is really, I mean, you have to create the space in your mind for you. And being of value, being of service to others is beautiful, but not at your detriment. You're putting on your oxygen mask first, please, Scorpio risings. Sagittarius rising, second house activation. The full moon culminates in your second house. Your money, your resources, your self worth, what you own, pulling against your own eighth house, Cancer sun, what's shared, merged, or owed. Something about your own value and stability reaches its fullness. The moon perfects at 8 degrees and 15 minutes. If you have natal placements or point near 8 degrees of cardinal sign, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, or in an earth sign, Taurus, or Virgo, the lunation is going to land pretty close or on it in a trine and a square and an opposition. And this makes this full moon feel impactful, which just means you have more opportunity to release and move forward without feeling like things are heavier than they need to be. So it's worth checking your chart for that exact degree. Saturn in Aries sits in your fifth, ruling this moon and forming the apex of the cardinal grand square. So if you, for you, the release roots through activity, creativity, romance, play. Listen, people, Saturn in Aries is like a little handcuff, a little bed restraint. Get the fuzzy ones if you like, you know? I'm just saying. This is a little good girl energy for you, Sag rising. Nothing you're afraid of. You're a good time. So this when this is your release, this is not so shabby for Sag rising. The structure is asking you to take what you make for love, for your self-expression, for your heart, for your and what feels risky. Sagittarius likes a little risk. That's what I'm saying. A little candle wax, whatever you got, you know, you like it, I love it for you, as long as everyone's consenting. But that's not a bad release. Like, but and also something to build off of. Like finding that release so that you don't want to avoid other things. Make sure you're having release so that you don't find yourself in avoidance later for the things that matter. Capricorn rising. I don't know why this one's so small. I must have not fixed the text. I'm so sorry. Capricorn risings, you know, I think the Capricorn rising women are just, they have that like badass sexy thing going. So shout out extra to the Caps. Uh First house activation. This full moon culminates in your first house. That makes it about you, your body, your identity. You say how, you say when, you say how much, how you want to show up, how you want to let people, if people are not, if they want to go out of their way to misperceive you and misunderstand you, guess what? Guess what? You can just, yeah, you can just not deal with them. You can give them the cold shoulder. The other point of this access with the full moon is Cancer. And you know what Cancer is really good at? We're ride or dies. And then we wrote it till it was dead, and now it's on do not resuscitate. You just do not have to give people your energy that are devoted to misunderstanding you and then talking about it with others. Let it be a them problem. And when you stop giving proximity to those people, they start to look pretty foolish when they are speaking like they know you, when they haven't had access to you. And they will, with Saturn and Aries, end up telling on themselves. The garbage takes itself out, people. The old version of you reaches a culmination and you can let go. I like to say there are moments where I thank the old version of me that doesn't have good boundaries, that allowed people to treat her badly and put herself, maybe made some decisions out of wounds that weren't good for everybody, that not all the responsibility goes on everyone else in the external circumstances. But I was doing the best that I could with the limited tools and understanding I had at the time. When something really good happens and I realize I don't do that anymore, I like to take a moment and I like to thank that version of me and promise her that we've got this from here on out. We don't do that anymore. And I like to thank her for taking the hardest hits and learning the hardest lessons in the hardest way. And that's something you can do with this. You can just thank the old version of yourself for dealing with what you needed to survive at that moment without judgment and release it. The moon perfects at 8 degrees and 15 minutes Capricorn. If you have a natal placement near this in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, the cardinal signs at a square or an opposition or conjunction, or if you have it in Taurus and Virgo around that 8 degrees in a trine, that unrestricted flow, the illumination may feel a little bit more impactful, which just gives you more opportunity to release, which I love for you, Cap Rising. Saturn and Aries, that is sitting in the fourth house, ruling this moon, forming that T square. For you, the release lands in the foundation. Sanctuary, sanctuary, sanctuary. Go touch a tree near your home. Family roots, where you come from, can be deconstructed. You don't have to cling to that. Some of us don't, you know, some of us, family is what we do to maintain a different family relationship. Sometimes we don't want to look to our roots for the stability. That's not everyone, right? It's where you can deconstruct epigenetics, right? Where you can break cycles and where the structure is being asked of you that you can nurture a new way, a new ancestral root that you can grow, and you can decide this has had enough water, enough light, and we're doing this different. It's about the base you're building onto. Aquarius rising 12th house activation, full moon culminates in your 12th house. Who doesn't love a full moon in the 12th house? Unconscious retreat, endings, what's hidden, the surrender, the pulling against and balancing that 6th house. Be kind to yourself so that you are not overthinking and over punishing yourself in your head. Be kind to your body. Uh, Something beneath the surfaces may reach its fullness. This is often interior. This is a very private full moon for you. This moon perfects at 8 degrees, 15 minutes Capricorn. If you have natal placements near that degree in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, is going to give you the conjunction, opposition, squaring, or in Taurus and Virgo, which is going to give you that like the flux capacitor from Back to the Future, that like that flow. This is just going to mean that it's going to be impactful and give you more room to do more release. It's worth checking your chart for that degree. Saturn in Aries sitting in the third, ruling this moon and forming the T square. For you, the release roots through the mind and the everyday word, how you think, how you speak to yourself. Deconstruct Aquarius rising, anything said to you when you were younger that still sits with you. Any words that weren't kind or weren't informed. Listen, our parents did the best that they could with what they had. Terrible social constructs and blanketed parenting and worried about what the neighbors would think a lot of the time. So we are outgrowing that as a society, and you should deconstruct it and outgrow it yourself as well. The structure that's being asked of you is discipline and honesty for your daily communication. And I gotta say, an Aquarius rising, they, I love Aquarius placements. I love all the placements. But the thing about Aquarius placements as a Cancer is I have a little envy of them because they don't have the unhealthier, like toxic attachments. Um, they're not cold, they're just not about the drama. Um, and so you continue being you, and that is reinforcing the structure. And last but never least, our lovely Pisces risings, 11th house activation. The full moon culminates in your 11th house. Community networks, online, the collective. What are you doing? What are you setting up for yourself next? Um, how do you want to change in the future that, like, my identity, my reputation, those Capricorn themes are moving and shifting, balancing against your fifth house of Cancer, Sun, personality, creativity, romance, what you make of yourself, something about your people, right? The fifth house is like your children, 11th house is everybody else's children. It's community. Your direction reaches fullness. Yeah, you see an ending of a friendship? Yeah, but it that had gonna sound weird for a Cancer, but that should not be sad because if the full moon comes, the full moon isn't taking out an old friendship. The full moon is illuminating the friendships. You can't grow anymore with each other. Just wish each other well and allow you guys one to go right and one to go left. Uh, the moon perfects at 8 degrees and 15 minutes. If you have natal placements near that degree in Cardinal, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, you're going to experience conjunction, opposition, square. And if you have it either Taurus or Virgo, you're going to get that unrestricted trine. I love you more energy, more release for you. Uh, Saturn and Aries sits in the second house, ruling the moon, forming the T square. And for you, this releases your own sense of worth, not anybody else's, what they tell you how you should be loved or how you should feel your own value. How do you value yourself? That money and resources. Let me tell you something. My beautiful Pisces risings, that Venus, that kind of home plate, home base of second house, whether you have it there or not, whether it's ruled by Venus or not, that value, you will calibrate all abundance of love, affection, worth, being treated well, money, success, all of it is calibrated on whatever level of value you put on yourself. Beautiful, beautiful Capricorn full moon to make sure that you release anything that gets in the way of truly feeling your worth, because that is what you are always building on. Okay, last page. This is moon water, intention, and crystals. In this full moon, I would make moon water, but for a very specific reason. I would drink or use in an intention, air quotes, or quotes, when I had awareness of attachment of any kind, antiquated thoughts about myself, attachment to other people's opinion of me, or when I feel myself not standing in my full authenticity, whether that's for people pleasing or not feeling like you're the authority, whatever reason, it doesn't mean you're inauthentic or you're fake. It never, never means that. And to support letting go of any of that, that's what I would use that moon water for. If I put crystals out, they would be in protection and detection of any inauthentic intentions towards me. Okay. When you're feeling like, I don't know if this person is real or if they're using me, because I will jump in and do the labor, start carrying that crystal around that you charged out in that full moon, and it will probably make itself known. The intentions, I would say, for this full moon is not my circus, not my monkeys. And if you are a gorgeous, beautiful Capricorn moon, and I can think of quite a few in my community, and I love them, uh, I tell you that all the time. Not your circus, not your monkeys. Other people's opinions or misunderstanding of me are none of my business. I would say other people's opinions of me are none of my fucking business. Um, God, was that hard to deconstruct as a 10th house Cancer. And God, was it the best thing I ever deconstructed. Life changing. This is the full moon in Capricorn. I hope that you got everything out of this that you need. I am also running a special, probably should have said that in the beginning. I'm not the best at promoting myself. Um, that's a habit I'm going to work on for this full moon. Uh, I'm running a special for my birthday. That's on my website, SuzzyEvolutionary.com. You just go on there and it tells you everything. So if this is hitting your chart in a way, there's like a half an hour for $51. We can talk about metaphysical stuff. If you need an astrological appointment with me, then you can also go on my website, and the astrological side of that menu is going to take you right over to Work Astrology, because I do all of my astrology appointments through the, incomparable and exemplary human known as Lori Rivers. So I love you. Now you love you. Leave me lots of comments, and thank you for watching.